Hello friends, welcome to Collage Class. This is episode number 7. And today we are going to use sandpaper and a magazine image. Now I want to show you my completed project. I'm going to do a fresh project with you today, but I just wanted to show you an example of what we're doing before we get started. So you remember that last week we worked with tissue paper, and I happen to have made several tissue paper backgrounds. I figured while I had it out and I had the Mod Podge out and all that kind of stuff, that I'd go ahead and do a couple of them. So I might use one again today. And you can see that I used one for this art piece. You can see it right around here. Now the other thing you're going to need today is a magazine image, and you'll notice that my seahorse is a torn magazine image. So today though I wanted to do something a little bit different, so I chose this magazine image. Okay, so you're going to need that. You will need some sandpaper, because you're going to notice if we look at this one that's already completed, we went ahead and sanded around these edges. You can see that the colors are not as intense around the edge, and that was because I sanded it. And the reason I sanded, I wouldn't have liked to have sanded this part off, but I did because it had the magazine name above it, and I didn't want that on my art piece. So you're going to want sandpaper, and you're going to want a little bit of coffee or tea or even chicory, because we're going to paint that onto the sanded paper just to give it a little bit of a little color. Okay, now if you don't have coffee or tea or chicory, you could always use a stamp pad that's either brown or black, preferably brown. If you don't have brown and you have gold, use gold. If you don't have either one of those but you have black, go ahead and use black. Okay? All right, so I've shared the basics with you. What we're going to do now, obviously at some point when we're ready to glue our image down, you'll need your scissors, your glue. You might want to tear instead of using scissors, and that's fantastic. I haven't decided if I'm tearing mine. I probably will tear mine today. I did tear this one. I do like the effect that it gives. But let's go ahead and move this one out of the way. If I need to pull it back in for reference, it's right here. We can always talk about it and look at it. All right? So what we're going to do now, I pulled, just so that you know, I pulled a couple of my jelly print papers out. So for you, if you don't have those on hand, I would suggest once you pull your magazine page out, go ahead and just pull out some even scrap paper that maybe has some coordinating colors in it, okay? This is probably not all that I'm gonna end up pulling out for this, although it might be, but I might go back and pull out some other stuff as well. But this is what we're gonna get started with. So I'm gonna go ahead and move these over as well so that we can focus on our main piece, which is the baby on this pail here, which is really so cute. All right, and this was a book page, so you can use a book page or a magazine page. So what I'm going to do, before I even tear around, I'm just going to go ahead, grab my sandpaper, and you can use anything. If you have a nail file at home and that's all you have, go ahead and use that. If if you've got some sandpaper in your garage or your craft room, go ahead and grab that. It doesn't really matter what it is. Even a sanding block that we use for our nails, if you have one of those, you can grab that too. So I'm just going to go ahead and start sanding around the edges. Now when you're done sanding, what you're going to want to do, maybe grab a napkin or something like that. You're going to want to get all of that sanded ink off of there. All right, my friends, I've got this sanded, I think the way that I want. I can always go in and do a little bit more. I'm going to go ahead and tear. So now, so that I don't get into this picture, I'll probably use my finger as a little bit of a tear guide. And let's start here at the top. And let's just go ahead. We're going to go across this bucket like this. And then we're going to go ahead and go down the side. And let's go across the bottom. Doesn't have to be perfect. It's more interesting if it's not. Now you'll notice I left a little bit of room around so that I could use the coffee and deepen the color right around the edges. Now I didn't sand a lot, and part of me wonders if I should go in and sand a little more deeply right on these edges, just so that we're sure the coffee gets in there real good. I'm going to go ahead and do that. Now, depending on the picture that you chose, if yours is super rustic, you could actually crumple your picture up. I don't want to do it on this one, although I am very tempted, but we can always do that another time. So I went ahead and grabbed a napkin because I wanted to show you why it's so important to wipe off the stuff that you sand, because do you see? I mean, there really is ink that comes off of there. So get that sort of out of the way, get that off of there and out of the way so that your coffee and all of that can stick properly. All right, so we've got this ready. Let me check the shape. I think it's good. I'm just going to go ahead and embrace it, although this winging out like it is bothers me just a little bit, so I'll just tighten that up just a tad. There we go. Okay. Now, you can use a paintbrush for your coffee, or you can use something like this and dab it on. It doesn't really matter. Let's go ahead, since I have this handy, let's go ahead and dab the coffee on there. So this is a way that you can coffee dye something without having to commit to making a full-on mess with it. So do you see how it took it from being pristine white around the edges to having some color on it? And if I wanted it to be darker, I could brew a super dark coffee and put that on there. And like I said, a brush works fine too. There's really no wrong way to get your coffee on the paper. I happen to have one of these tools. It's a heat tool. I'm going to dry this. You could use a hair dryer, or you could go ahead and make a batch of them, set this one aside, do some others, and then by the time you were done with your others, your first one should be dry. And then you'd also have a collection of little pieces that were ready to go for future collages. Now I'm bringing over my background piece. So it is going to take this image, which is traditional, very sweet. And when I put it on here, and I'm going to mat it on something else first, but it's going to change the dynamic of it. So let's play with our papers before we do it to make sure that we're going to be happy. This is a little bit of gel print on some almost tissue paper or baker's paper. You can hear it's light and crunchy. I really like it. I think it'll be fun to use. So if we sort of did a mat here like that, and then put this over this, and I might go ahead and tear around this as well. Might cut it, might tear it. I think tearing would be good though. And then I think that's a beautiful background for our centerpiece here. So I like that. Let's go ahead and tear some things, and then we're going to end up cutting this piece much smaller so everything fits. It's okay to do that, you know, it's okay to tighten up your stuff so that your centerpiece, if it's smaller than all this, just tighten everything up so that everything fits. And part of me wonders if I should go ahead and glue this down before I tear around the edges, and I'm thinking I will. And now that I have formulated a plan, I'm going to tear a little bit more of this away, not too much, just a little bit over here as well. I just think in the end it'll look better if I do. What do we think of that? That looks a little better, doesn't it? And then part of me wonders if we should ink around the edges before we put this down. And I think that's what we're going to do. So let me go grab an ink. You can feel free to do the same if you'd like to. Okay, I feel a little shadowy coming from my window. Sorry about that. So I've got brown and I've got this blue, and I'm thinking of being daring and going with the blue, right? Part of art, a huge part of art actually, is being daring and trying something new. So I've got my little pad here, and I'm going to take this one off because that looks blue to me. Of course, this one does too. I don't know, maybe I'll just leave that one on there. And we'll just go around the edge with it. Yeah, look, I think that's a great call on that. If you don't have ink, don't worry. It's not necessary. And if you don't have ink pads, you can also go around with markers. If you've watched my channel at all, you'll know that I've done that quite a bit. I think that's looking good. What do you guys think? Yeah, I like that. That's pretty cool. Now I'm going to go ahead and glue this down, and then I'll start tearing around it. I always like to give it a little bit of pressure like that to make sure it's down all the way. You can also flip it over, but I didn't want to get this dirty with this ink. It's probably not dry yet, but it would have been super easy. Well, I guess I could right here. Just flip it over like that. Just put something down on your table. And then you can just do this. Make sure you got the glue everywhere where you want it. Okay. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and tear around it. Now I wonder if I want to use a ruler this time, just to make sure I don't make a mess of it. But it would look more organic if I just went ahead and used my fingers like last time. I guess let's give that a go. So I'm going to put them just over like this. Oh, I wanted to let you guys know, for your matting page, you can use music paper, you can use a piece of scrapbook paper, you can use a book page, use, if you have an extra of your tissue paper that we made last week, pretty much anything you want to mount your image on is perfectly fine. Okay, let's see what we got. This will make great scraps or backgrounds for something else, so we're going to move this over here. All right, we got a little extra on top. I'll go ahead and take some of that off. There we go. I think that's looking pretty good. And so maybe, just for fun, not a requirement, but maybe just for fun, we'll see if we can go around this edge with some of the leftover ink on the thing. This paper is super soft, so it's hard to do it. So I'm gonna get a little more on there because it might be easier to deposit that color. This might not make much of a difference, but we're gonna do it anyway. Again, not a requirement for you. I can see it leaving a little color, so that's nice. All right, our focal point is done. We are ready to move it over to the mat, and then we can add more things. But let's measure this out, and we're going to go ahead and cut our mat, and then we'll decide what else we want on here. All right, so I think I'm going to cut this right about here. Let me see if this end needs to be trimmed. It does need to be trimmed a little bit, so I'll go ahead and just clean that up. And then I'll just clean up the top and bottom. We might end up taking more off of the top or the bottom, but we're not sure, so we're not going to worry about that right now. All right, so this is our background piece. And then here's our focal point. So now I could glue that together and that would be complete. And if that's what you would like to do to keep things simple, that is fine. That's what you can do. You can just add your focal point onto your background and have just a sweet little collage. But if you'd like to continue on, then we'll see what we can do to jazz it up a little bit. Now, I have to be honest with you. In my mind, what would look really great on here would be if this was stitched around the edge. Now, I don't know if you have a sewing machine. If you do, you could do that. If you don't, you could hand stitch it, which would take a while. And then also, some folks have fun drawing stitches onto their paper. So maybe we'll do that just in case you don't happen to have a sewing machine. How does that sound? Let's just do that. We'll keep it fair for everyone. So if you don't have a sewing machine, we'll just go ahead and put pretend stitches on it. I'm running low on glue, can you tell? Oh goodness. It's in there, but I am getting low. All right. Now you can see we've got plenty of room to work with up at the top, plenty of room to work with down at the bottom. But before we do any of that, I think it's important to go ahead and get that stitching on. And then whatever else we decide to add, we'll go over the stitching, but it'll look more natural if we're not trying to work around stuff. As you guys know, there are lots and lots of different kinds of stitching, right? So I am going to, oops. I'm gonna try to make this bigger, so we can decide what kind we want to draw, what would be easiest. And usually I think people do just like a straight stitch, but I kind of also like this little zigzag stitch. I think that's pretty cute. Yeah, maybe this zigzag, that would be super easy. I think I'm gonna go, I don't know if you can see it or not, there we go. I'm gonna go for this zigzag stitch. It'll be easier. But here, just so that you know, here's the other ones. This is like a straight stitch, and you could do 3 in a row, or you could just do 1 if you wanted to. I have a true confession, and that true confession is that I have never drawn stitches. I usually depend on my sewing machine. So mine is not going to be perfect, and that is a-okay. I think this could get a little wild for me. So what I'm gonna do is with a pencil, I'm gonna go ahead and draw where I want my stitching lines to be. Because I have to decide, do I want them straight, which I don't know if I do, but I don't wanna go at an extreme angle either. So maybe I'll focus on trying to get them close to, not super close, but somewhat close to this little outline right here. So let's see. Now, I don't like to overthink things, but since I've never done this before, I am overthinking it a little bit. And we can barely see the pencil mark, and that's what I wanted. As long as I can see it enough to make my marks, then I think we're good to go. There we go. Okay, I can definitely see those now. They're not too dark, but I can see them. All right, wish me luck. I hope it looks good. What do you guys think? I think it looks pretty cute. And honestly, quick look, I might think I sewed that on there. So I'm happy with it. These didn't touch perfectly, but that's okay. I'm probably going to end up putting a button right there. I think a blue button would look fantastic. But before we get into that, let's take a look at this. Maybe we want to add a word or a piece of ribbon or something like that. So go ahead, get into your scraps. Don't get anything new. Just go ahead and get into some scraps. I have a jar here and I keep my blue and green stuff in here. Let's have a look and see if there's anything that we think that might look good on this collage piece. And we've got some green that would help pull out some of the greens if we wanted. We have this beautiful shiny blue. We have this, which I don't think I'll use this. It's a little bit too thick. We have some dark blue, which I mean, it does work because we have this down here, but I don't think I would choose that. Let's see, let me just dump everything out. You know what I've got in here? Well, this is cute. We've got some hearts. And I'm thinking I've got my eye on, if I can get it out of here, this. Okay. All right, let's see. I've got my eye on this. You know, I love gingham and check and all that kind of stuff, so I'm wondering, can we get this on here? Let's find out. So now we'd be adding some texture to our collage, and I could frame it. I could just put it at the top and the bottom. Oh, I might do that. Oh, yeah, I like that. And I also think we might tighten this up a little bit, take a little off the bottom and a little off the top. But before we do, we'll add this. Let's go ahead and add this. That'll look really nice. All right, so go ahead and pick, me if you want to, pick a piece of fabric or a piece of ribbon or trim and plan to add that to your collage. I'm going to cut two the same size. There we go. Now, I didn't heat up my glue gun. I would normally probably put this on with that, but I do have some Fabri-Tac. I'm going to go ahead and grab that. And then we're going to do another one down here. Try to center it the same way I did the first one. I feel like this one down here is a little bit low, but that's okay. I'm not going to worry about it. I don't want to have to wipe that glue off and make a mess, so I'm just going to put it right here. I guess it's not too bad. Okay, so here's what we've got so far, my friends. Now, we definitely know we need more, but we also know, I think we need to trim this a little bit, and honestly, if I look at this and where this torn paper is coming to this edge, I see a little bit over here. I'm going to take just a little bit of that off. Let's go ahead and bring our sides together a little bit, and then we'll see how we want to finish it. And actually, trimming it up a little bit will be nice because it'll fit better in my art journal. There we go, that's looking better already. I'd like to make these even, so I'm actually looking at this piece here and having it match up to, there's a line on here, I don't know if you can see it, but if you do that on yours, then you know that's a nice way that we can make sure that we're getting it right. Let me make sure this edge is straight right here. All right, friends, I went ahead and I dug around. Let me show you what I found that I think would coordinate nicely. Of course, I've got some blue buttons that I think we'll definitely end up putting on here. But I also found this sort of flower bunch, and that could look super cute on there. I mean, doesn't that look pretty? It could go in either corner, I think. I like it. I think that's super nice. And then I found these gorgeous birds. I mean, they're beautiful. I think they work as well. I don't see them up at the top as much as at the bottom, but yeah, I think they definitely work. The colors are perfect. And then I actually found these, and they're for baby boys. It says, you got the cutest little baby face. I guess that's not necessarily for a boy, the saying, but the colors match perfectly on here. So if we look at these, it says, a baby is a gift of love, enjoy every moment. And then it says, baby boy, our new arrival, our new arrival. So that's what it says on this one. So these definitely, like this could go in the center right here. We could do this one up at the top. The flowers could go on either end of one of these. Don't even have to use them all, but I could use a couple of them. And I think it would be pretty cute. So let's take this off of here. Let's try them on for size. I always use some additional glue. So we'll just carefully put this down here. And then let's just take off the flowers because chances are pretty strong we could use these. Let's say we put one on each end of this. All right. And then I actually can turn this collage into a card for someone if I want to. Let's just pretend this was going to go here and then a button was going to go, We don't want to junk this up, right? We want to be careful. This could go here. Let me try the round one. I don't know if this is too much putting them all on here, but let's see. The round one could go there. Let's take a look at this and decide what we think. I think this doesn't go here, so I think I'll take that off. And this is definitely missing something up here. And I think I want to trim some of this so it's more of like an actual card size. So I wanted to mention to you guys, it's absolutely fascinating how I didn't set out to create something that could become a card. And that's the beautiful thing about our art. It grows as we're working on it, right? And here we are. So I just think that's a lot of fun. Now, let's try something else before we dig our heels into this. Let's say we put this here, because I do think that looks great there, okay? And then let's say we put this down here. Let's see, like what if I curve it like this? And then what if this went in the center of it? I can kind of move that bow out of the way a little bit. That's pretty cute. And then what if we had these flowers up here like that? What do you guys think of that? And if I want to, I can put a button here, but I don't know that I need to. Maybe the button goes right up here in the center. Let's grab one and find out. Let's see what we got. So I was at the thrift store and I found, they're called button-ups, and they actually have glue on the back, or like, you know, tape. So I think these are great. And I have an open pack, so let's open this up. Got a couple different sizes, and I also have some blue buttons right there. All right, let's try these on. So we could do a big one right here, or we could do a small one in the center. I think that's a little bit too small, honestly. But this one's got some sort of medium-sized ones. And one of those could go right there. That's kind of cute. So let's say we took one of the little ones and put it down here. Try that on. It's not very obtrusive. It's a nice finishing detail, I think. Let's see, we're going to take one of the medium ones. Let's go with the dark blue. Yeah, let's go with the dark blue and put that there. What do we think about that, you guys? I mean, I think that looks pretty darn good. Let me move it down here. Yeah, I really like it. All right, let's go ahead and start gluing some things down. Now, like I mentioned before, most of this stuff already has glue on it, but I don't always trust that. Especially if I pick it up at the thrift store. You know, I don't know how old it is. I don't know how good that glue's gonna be. So I just think adding some is always a good idea. Well, that's stuck on there pretty good all by itself. That's funny. So I'll just put a little dab under there just for a little insurance policy. But otherwise, we'll just leave it on there. That stuck down really good. Okay, my friends, here is our beautiful collage. I am very, very happy with it. I don't think I overworked it. I feel pretty pleased with it. The colors are great. Everything coordinates and works together. I love our faux stitching. I love that we sanded up the edges and put some coffee on there. And then we used some ink to even just give it a little bit more detail. Let me get it a little closer for you so you can see it. It just came together really nicely. I would love to see what you made today. And if you'd like to share it, please go over to my Facebook group, Creating with Jovi, Journals and Crafts, and ask to join if you haven't already. And then feel free to post your makes. I would really, really love to see how you're doing with this collage class. And if you want to post some past ones from earlier episodes, feel free to do that. Friendly people there, supportive people, and I'd love to have that kind of interaction with you. So feel free to do that. I hope that you enjoyed this episode of Collage Class. For next week, be sure to save a tea bag. We're going to use that in our collage, okay? Also, next week, go ahead and grab some things with fibers in, perhaps burlap or fabric, a feather, perhaps something from outdoors. So go ahead and gather that, and just one of those items. You don't have to grab all of them, but you can if you'd like to. And I think we'll go ahead and use a book page. We can tear that up and use that in the collage, and then a photo or a magazine image. So texture will be the tea bag, and texture is going to be sort of our theme that we'll be working with next week. Okay? Well, I hope you enjoyed this, guys. I really had fun making it. Thanks for watching. See you soon.